Okay, so we're going to go over the PowerPoint notes for multiplying and dividing polynomials today. So we have each PowerPoint that I assigned. I'm going to start off with just showing what exactly is going to be covered in that, what's going to be covered in that PowerPoint. So there's a do now. We're going to be multiplying polynomials. There's going to be some practice problems and then the exit ticket / homework assignment. And then we're going to cover dividing polynomials, some practice, and then an exit ticket / homework. Then on the next slide, what I placed here was just an overview of things related to polynomials. So we have, this was unit 6, day 2. So unit day 1 is just about the intro. Day 2 is just about multiplying and dividing polynomials. So we have the definition here. What is polynomials are equations with only positive whole number exponents and at least one term. And so we have some classifications of some different polynomials based on the exponent and then based on the number of terms. So for polynomials, some important vocabulary is distribution is one. So distribution is applying one term to many other terms. So for instance, if we have a 2 times x plus 4, distributing means we multiply 2 times x and then the 2 times the 4. Multiplying terms, so there's a specific way we multiply terms. And I'm covering that on the next slide where I show the answers. So we multiply something, we keep our variables the same, and then we add something. And then for 4, we're multiplying 2 binomials in the order of first, outer, inner, last. So on the next slide, I'm giving the answers to those blanks. We're multiplying the coefficients, so the numbers in front of the letters get multiplied, and we add the exponents, so the numbers in the top right corner get added. So let's look through a couple examples here. So for polynomial multiplication, I'm going to take the simplest example that we have where we just have a single term or number or letter outside our parentheses and then a binomial inside. So step 1, we multiply the term outside the parentheses by each term inside the parentheses. So that will mean this 8 is going to get multiplied by the x and then go back to the 8 and it's going to be multiplied by the negative 6 here. Next, we use product rule to simplify if necessary. So in this case, it's not necessarily product rule we're using. All we're doing is adding together the two results. So 8x plus a negative 6 or 8x minus 6. This second problem, we're doing the same thing. We're multiplying this 2x by 2x squared, then the 2x times 4x, and then the 2x times 7. So the steps are the same here. It just takes more work because it's a longer problem with more terms. Then I tried to give you the first slide so that you can just look over it and kind of try to work through it on your own, looking at the steps. And then the second slide was where I go over the answers so that you can check your work to see, okay, yes, I understood the steps correctly, or no, I didn't understand them correctly. So looking at this, I understand what she meant by this step. And so I did that and just wrote out what step 1 would look like for this problem number 1, and then what step 2 would look like for that. So 8 times the negative 6 is negative 48. I think I said it incorrectly earlier, so excuse my my misspeaking. I think I said x times negative 6 instead of 8 times negative 6. But it should be 8 times negative 6, which is a negative 48. Then in the second one, 2x gets multiplied by 2x squared here. Then 2x we multiply by 4x here. And then 2x gets multiplied by 7 here. That's what I'm showing. And then in the last part, I hope it's not getting cut off by this window, but you use the product rule to simplify here. So we have 4x cubed. So in this part here, we multiply the coefficients. Again, this 2 is a coefficient, this 2 is a coefficient. 2 times 2 is 4. We keep the letter the same, it's going to be an x, and then the exponents get added. So we have an exponent of 2. You have to remember that when you don't have an exponent, you assume it's 1 because exponents just tell us how many times something is being multiplied. So in this case, we have 1x being multiplied, so our exponent is 1. So 1 plus 2 gives us an exponent of 3. That's how we got this 4x cubed. Next, we have 2x times 4x. So 2 times 4, again, we multiply the coefficients. 2 times 4 is 8. Keep the letter the same, just x. And then the exponents get added. So again, here we have two different ones where we don't see an exponent. But again, this is 1x, so exponent is 1. This is 1x, so the exponent is 1. So 1 plus 1 would be 2 here. So 8x squared is the result of this multiplication. And then this last multiplication, we have 2x times 7. 2 times 7 is 14. Bring the x down because we don't have any other letters except x. So that's what our final answer would look like for number 2. Okay. Then I'll give you two more difficult examples here. So our step 1, we want to multiply each term in the first parentheses by each term in the second parentheses. So this looks a little more difficult. I would suggest maybe using some arrows to kind of show what that looks like. So this 3x here, we're going to multiply by the x here. Then the 3x here, we're going to multiply by the negative 6. So that's the first and the last terms. Sorry, the first and the outer terms. Then the 8 here gets multiplied by the x. And then the 8 also gets multiplied by the negative 6. So that's the inner and the last terms get multiplied. A lot of people were making the mistake of just multiplying 3x times x and then 8 times negative 6, and that's it. So please don't do that. That's a common mistake when multiplying polynomials. You forget to multiply all the terms. So this 3x in this first parentheses gets multiplied by the x and the negative 6. This 8 in this first term gets multiplied by the x and the negative 6. So I always think about it is if I don't have 4 terms when I'm done multiplying, then I probably did something wrong because I have 1, 2, 1, 2, 2 times 2 is 4. All right, in the second one, we're going to distribute everything. So this is going to be a long one. X squared gets multiplied by all 3 of these terms, 2x by all 3 of these terms, and 5 by all 3 of these terms. So I'm showing the actual steps here. So what I would suggest for this one, if you're looking at it at home, is maybe taking a sheet of paper and covering up portions that kind of, when you look at it, it's too much for you to kind of digest at once. So take a sheet of paper and just maybe cover up this right side over here and only focus on the left side here and look over it and see if you understand it. So here I'm just showing everything that's going to get multiplied in all the terms. So 3x times x, 3x times negative 6. Then 8 times x, then 8 times negative 6. Then I'm simplifying, combining like terms here to get my final answer of 3x squared minus 10x minus 48. On the other side over here, again, use a sheet of paper to cover up things that are too much for you to look at once. So maybe you only want to look at this first red line. Use a sheet of paper to cover up the rest. That's kind of too much for you. Then this x squared times 2x squared. So that's coming from the first term in the first parentheses times the first term in the second parentheses. Then x squared times 4x. The first term in the first parentheses times the second term in the second parentheses. Then x squared times 7. The first term in the first parentheses times the last term in the second parentheses. So here's where you would draw arrows from the x squared to each of these terms as you multiply. That's what this first red line is. The second red line is multiplying the 2x here by each term in the second parentheses. And then lastly, the third red line here is multiplying this 5 by each of the terms in the second parentheses. Then once again, I'm simplifying here and showing each term simplified and then combining like terms. Again, remember, once you're adding, you can only add things with the same exponent. So I can't add these two because this has an exponent of 3 and this has an exponent of 2. So I can't add these together. But I can add this 4x cubed and this 4x cubed. That's going to give me 8x cubed. Okay. All right, so after you finish the two what I call guided practice problems each day, you'll get to this independent practice. So this is 20 minutes where I just want you to go to Khan Academy, look through some example problems that I've assigned, and just practice on the polynomial multiplication. Homework, after that, you want to spend no more than 10 minutes. So homework should not take more than 10 to 15 minutes. On this particular, it's about 10 minutes. Finish multiplying polynomials, lessons, and quizzes. You can watch a video. You can ask a classmate. You can email me if you're having problems. We're going to eventually be needing to graph things or use the graphing calculator. So I just put 2 links for websites that you can do that on. Since we're working from home, you can't... a lot of you may not have a graphing calculator, but you can still graph going to these websites. So here are 2 practice problems that I put into the actual PowerPoint that you can look over. So feel free to work through these problems, examples, and see if you can figure them out. I put these here for practice without answers. If you want the answers to these problems, you can email me. Then the exit ticket, again, it's here to give you some extra practice. So I want you to work this out on your own paper, send it to me, email it to me, or upload it to, upload the photo you take to Google Classroom or to my email address, okay? So this is the end of the first lesson on multiplying polynomials. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know. And I try to always end the lesson so you know when to stop. This is the end of 3/17/2020 lesson. So here is a stopping point for you. If you want to just do one lesson a day, you can stop here and not continue. If you got through this first lesson quickly, you can continue to the next lesson.